That is the nature of the mind. Its nature is to seek out fields of greater happiness. Cloud nine and other techniques is that if we can achieve a level of rest, of deep, deep, profound rest, and do this on a basis where we do it very quickly within roughly 15-20 minutes, then the body goes through a process of healing itself. Physiology, our body, the natural tendency of our body when it gets rest is to heal itself.
Hancock, and you are listening to MichMash, a place where I get to talk to the weird, wacky, wonderful people of this world, people I adore and want to know more about. Today, my guest is Bill Weiss. Bill formulated Cloud 9 experience as the unmindfulness technique, breaking through the meditation barrier. It's a highly effective and easy to learn technique, and he's going to share more of it with us today. Hello, Bill from outer space. How are
Hello.
things out there?
Oh, it's nice and quiet and very still.
For those of you that are just listening, we're also recording this live on Facebook right now and via Zoom. And Bill's background is in outer space, which I totally dig. I love it there. One of my favorite places to be. So you have been meditating for a very long time, sir. What I'm interested in knowing first is at 19, that's kind of young to be like, hey, I'm going to start meditating. Is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I did it. I started when I was in high school, a senior. I thought it was kind of crazy, and I heard about it from my brother who said, "You ought to try it." So I did, and I really enjoyed it. And I meditated regularly. I learned transcendental meditation in the day, 1971. And so I just started going from there. And actually, a few years later, during college, I I went to become a teacher of transcendental meditation. And so my interest was peaking, and I was really quite interested in the entire process of meditation. And that was a long time ago, over 45 plus years ago.
But then over time, which I think is awesome, then you developed your own way of meditating.
Yeah, so I had been teaching, and I taught and lectured to thousands of people. And TM, as it's called, is a wonderful technique. It works. It really, really works. And I taught for decades. Uh, and so I moved into another sort of realm where I began to have experiences of a unique proportion. In other words, all of those things that I studied and I taught, the actual experiences of expanding consciousness is something that started happening. And being from the show me state, I didn't believe it because intellectually we understand one thing, but experientially, for me anyway, it was hard for me to sort of understand that expanded state of awareness. And it was happening on a spontaneous basis. And so I really didn't give it much credence. And then years later, after it was happening a lot, over and over and over, would come and go, I started thinking, gosh, if we could share this, if I could share this with others in a very simplistic way, it would be pretty cool. And so now, I'll go back about 10 years when I first started having this idea of sharing this idea. And it was different than TM. And in fact, I stopped teaching TM, and I came around to follow and look into other great masters throughout the ages. And there's one teacher by the name of Amma. She's known today as the Hugging Saint.
Right.
Yeah. So that's we see Amma whenever she comes into the United States, and we've been to India, and I've been studying all about this sort of thing for a very, very long time, and I've been on lengthy meditation courses and retreats, and I would teach them, et cetera, et cetera. So the concept behind Cloud 9 is to offer a technique that is dramatic and experiential, sort of realms of real experience from the very first time, and offer it in a way that can be learned within just an hour or two, a couple of hours, at a cost that's reasonable, and one that doesn't involve just teaching one person at a time. So the concept is now to bring it to organizations, corporations, businesses where I can present it in group form. And it is a guided technique. So it's quite a bit different from TM. It's not concentration nor contemplation with some great philosophical idea. And there's no religion or belief system that's involved. And there's no repetition of a word or a sound. And because the very first instruction of Cloud Nine is to ask the mind to step out of the room. It's just
Right.
uncanny. Nobody's ever done that. Nobody's really separated the mind component from what I call a meditation experience. And so that's what we do in this experience. And I actually ask people to remember how they were when they were 5 or 8 or 10 years old. And in that innocent sort of realm where we didn't at that age try to take a lot of mental notes, we didn't try to analyze a great lot of things, a million things around us as we do today. We sort of used our imagination, our creativity, our intuition, and our awareness all by itself. And
So
so
let's go
that's
back.
what,
Just can I ask a real quick question on the
yeah.
transcendental because people that don't know about transcendental meditation, a few things that you said was, you're talking about what you teach now, and it's, at a price point that people can take, because transcendental meditations, it's expensive to learn,
Mm,
right?
I can't talk about that now only because I'm away from it, but I believe that it's probably still somewhat pricey. It is a technique that works. It's very effective, and some people really enjoy that. But I also find that there's a growing number of people that don't have the time or the financial capabilities of doing that. And so I wanted to offer something that might appeal in a way that is just as effective, in my opinion, and really at the fraction of the price. But that's, and the other thing that there's so much burnout in today's world, and there's so much
Right.
stress and strain and fatigue, and people are overloaded and overwhelmed, and
Well,
there's
COVID-19 is not helping right now. So
right,
this is
right.
a real, if you haven't meditated before, maybe start thinking of it now, to help you through this time.
And it's true. And there's a million apps on the on your telephone. There's meditation is mainstream now. And what I'm offering is something that the way that it's done, the mechanics of this whole thing are quite unique because uh, with a word repetition type of technique, which is what TM is, or
Right.
in the old days they used to say, focus on a candle flame and concentrate on it, and do certain things like that. And all of those modalities require some mental effort.
Mm-hmm.
There's some mind component that's involved with that. And because of that, the mind is very limited in nature. And so this is a technique that works along the lines of another great master, Ramana Maharishi, who taught a very simple technique of asking, "Who am I?" And after years and years of doing that, it finally worked for me. And there is a distinction, a delineation between the mind and awareness by itself. And there's that is the experience of people. In fact, our friend Josh, who learned not too long ago, had the experience. And this is a guy who told me first, straight up, he said, I'll meditate, but my mind will never stop. I can't
This is
stop.
Josh Levy, right? Yeah.
Yes. And that is such a typical thing. And if you think about it, we have chatter in the mind all day long. We work and we pick up this mind noise. It goes on all day long. We come home, we have dinner, we watch television, we go to bed, we wake up, and we still have 50% of that chatter in the mind. That is the nature of the mind. Its nature is to seek out fields of greater happiness. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're studying and we're really focusing, and somebody walks by with music on, our attention just automatically goes to that. We don't have to try to tell our mind, okay, now I'm going to switch and listen to the music. It does it spontaneously.
Well, and I
That's
think
me.
one of the things that people will experience when if they do not meditate
Yeah.
is when they go to first try to go meditate, as soon as they lay down, they get quiet. It's like, oh, I forgot to put dog food on the grocery list. Oh, I didn't call my mom back. Oh, I mean, this used to happen to me. I mean, that was my experience for a really long time until I learned how to just be like, okay, just shh. you know um but for you, and I think it's interesting to point out to people so they understand that there isn't just one way to meditate,
Right.
and so, and what I like about what you do is that um it's available. Like, people can go to your Cloud9 experience website and they can tune in. You have several of these a week that people can tune in to be a part of, and then you can, like, not only
Right.
teach individuals, but you can teach whole companies, whole bunches of business people. I mean,
Mhm.
I would love, I mean, think about what your workplace could look like before and after if you help your people to be at ease and breathe and, take that vacation away from the everyday stresses.
Mhm. Well, that's exactly it. There's so much burnout in the workforce these days, and just in life in general. And that's what we term as stress and strain and fatigue. And just as the mind's natural tendency is to seek out greater fields of happiness, and it does that, it goes from thing to thing to thing, the physiology, our body, the natural tendency of our body when it gets rest is to heal itself. And so we go through the waking state of the day and we engage in activity, and we're tired at the end of the day, and then we get some sleep at night and we dream. And during the sleeping and dreaming stages of our daily activity, that's when the body attempts to throw off stress, strain, and fatigue. That's what the body does. That's its natural tendency. And that's what it does when we get sick. A doctor will say, go home, get rest, stay in bed. And the reason why is because then the body gets a chance to heal itself. And the difference with Cloud9 and other techniques is that if we can achieve a level of rest, of deep, deep, profound rest, um, and do this on a basis where we do it very quickly within roughly 15, 20 minutes, then the body goes through a process of healing itself. But if we could do it to the extent of virtually twice as deep as the deepest point of sleep, then we are dissolving a really vast amount of stress and strain and fatigue that our physiology carries. And so we know that this is working because when we do Cloud9, our heart rate slows down drastically, our breathing becomes much more shallow. And these are parameters that indicate that the physiology is gaining rest, in fact, deep rest. The
But
ex-
also mind, and right,
Sorry?
your also your mind,
Yeah.
your emotional body. I mean, all of you. It's very holistic in how it helps you to just like rest everything, and you come out of the experience, because I got to experience it. You come out of that experience and you feel really rested, and everything just has that more zen kind of, okay,
You
I'm
know,
good.
yeah, in fact, I like to use an analogy, and you probably know what an incandescent light bulb is, the old-fashioned light
Yes.
bulb with the little filament inside. And what it does is it produces light frequencies that are very random in nature. But a 60-watt light bulb is enough to light up a room, for instance. However, if you took that same amount of energy and put it into a laser, what a laser does is it amplifies the light or the energy going into it so that it has an extremely coherent wavelength, waveform coming out. And so in that process, that energy becomes extremely coherent and it becomes extremely powerful. It can cut through glass and steel and stone. And so that's what we do when we do Cloud9. We're creating this wave coherence in consciousness that's very real. So that's why we feel very rested. And in fact, interestingly, as I mentioned a moment ago, the mind goes from thing to thing to thing because it's always seeking greater fields of happiness. The reason why Cloud9 works is because inside it's so much more enjoyable to be in silence and stillness. And we recognize the distinction of the higher self, as I call it, from the mind, which is always.
Right.
And so once we recognize that higher self which is much more enjoyable than all the stuff going on all around us, we are drawn there and we stay there for a long time. And so it's very, and because we're doing that, because the mind is virtually shut down, then the physiology gets a chance to rest. In fact, think of your nervous system as a rubber band. And a rubber band, if we've ever played with one, we put twists and turns in it. Um, think of those twists and turns as sort of stress and strain and fatigue that we've accumulated every day, every month, every year of our life. And when we sleep at night, we give that little rubber band a chance to unwind a little bit.
There you
So,
go.
right? And so
Yeah.
if we have too much of those knots in the rubber band, it does two things. One, it becomes it loses its elasticity, becomes less flexible, until finally, what happens? It can snap, it can break. And so we don't want that to happen to our little nervous system in a sense. And so what we need to do is we need to unravel, dissolve, remove that stress and strain, that burnout, the noise in the system. And the only way to do that is to do what we do best, and that is to allow the physiology to go through a process of healing itself. And it does it best when it gets rest. And it really does it well when it gets virtually twice the amount of deep rest that it would get during sleep. And by the way, in sleep, it takes 4 to 6 hours to achieve the deepest point in sleep. So if we can achieve that really, really deep level of restfulness, then we can achieve great things. And by the way, just as there are 7 or 8 billion people in the world, you know, there must be 7 or 8 billion ways to find happiness within, or find enlightenment, or find nirvana, or find whatever it takes to expand consciousness. So
I
this is
love it.
a melody that can appeal to a lot of people, I think.
So, and thank you. And it's so true. I mean, and just in case anybody out there is wondering, you can't just do it once and miracles happen. You have to be dedicated to it. I mean, it does. You have to be dedicated to it. So I have some questions for you. Can I ask you some questions?
Absolutely.
Which this first one's really kind of funny because of what your background is right now on Zoom. But what's the farthest away you've been from home?
You mean inside or
Just
physical?
like it real like maybe on a vacation or a retreat somewhere, or
Oh
what's the
gosh.
farthest you've ever gone?
Oh, India. Um, India. Actually, I've gone to Hong Kong and South Africa, and I've been all over in Europe and lots of places. Lots of
S-
places physically.
were these all, did you go, I mean, I'm going to guess they were vacations, but it sounds like you did a lot of like retreats and such, and learning more about meditation and meeting spiritual type leaders, right?
Yes, that's right. I mean, I think the longest meditation program I was on was actually 6 months, and we meditated for hours and hours and hours every day. And experiences grow when you do that. An understanding of consciousness grows significantly. And what's really kind of interesting is that we have senses that go out: sight, hearing, taste, smell, etc. But what I found is that as awareness expands, the inner senses begin to open up, which is a really interesting phenomenon, I think.
Right.
It was Albert Einstein that claimed years and years ago that he thought he used about 25% of his awareness, and he had tremendous perception into the universe. And so maybe everyone already is using 25%. But I mean, as wonderful as that is, if you think about it, there's another 75% that's not being
Yeah.
used on a daily basis.
What are we going to do when we get there?
Well, that's
It'll
what
be interesting.
that's where I'm kind of going with this, and that there's so much potential within the human consciousness, and as inner senses begin to open up, it unfolds a lot more. It's kind of like adding on, loads and loads of memory onto a computer, terabytes and terabytes. Um,
Right.
it's so much more than that even. And so we are living a limited existence because of our perception. We have limitations in the way that we think. And this is a technique that really breaks those boundaries, because we experience who we truly are, which is the same person that we were when we were 5 years old, except the difference is the mind is asked to step out of the room when we do cloud nine. It's not a part of this. It,
Right.
it creates those limitations. So that's where I believe Cloud Nine experience is truly an experience. And then after we have that experience, then I teach a home version of that so that people can continue to do this. And that's really what the studies have shown. When you meditate regularly, tremendous things happen. A study was done with high school students, and they learned to meditate. And over a period of time, they were reevaluated, and they found that their grades improved. They came to class awake every day. They got along better with teachers and parents just from meditation. Who would have thought? You know,
There you go. School system. I mean, everything's changing in the school system. I mean, yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be awesome if they started out every day in homeroom with a meditation of some sort? Let me ask you this. So that we were talking about these things, they make so many great changes in your life. But is there something that you hope never changes?
in my life, or
Yeah, in your life. Is there something you're like, I want this to just stay as is. This is
you
good.
know, the the this world is full of change. We can't stop that. The only thing that we can do to hang on to something that never changes is that awareness inside. It never changes. It's always there. It's always still and quiet and silent. And that is what we can hold on to amid the crashing waves in the middle of the ocean. If there's an island and we land on that island, at least if we're high enough out of the ocean, we're not touched by the waves that always are going on, the crashing movement of the waves of the ocean. But inside, we find that that stillness never goes away.
I
And so
like it. That's true.
we can
That's right.
do that on a daily basis. We incorporate that more and more into our life when we're in activity. And that's actually partly a definition of a person who is living what's known to be enlightenment, self realized. We realize the self as never changing, and that's within. It's always been there. We just have not had a really, well, we have tools to get there, but they've always come with, sort of uh, requirements that
Right.
our ability to do that. And I mean, just in Josh's case, he never wanted to do it because he never thought he could do it successfully. And then he tried Cloud Nine, and at the end he said to me, I didn't have any thoughts. And I said, that's exactly the point.
Which is
That's
an awesome thing. You think that's, having no thoughts, very restful for everything.
yeah.
So I have this other question for you because I got to meet your wonderful wife, Randy. How did you two meet?
we funny enough, we met at the Transcendental Meditation Center in St. Louis, and I was looking
Really?
for a guy, and he was training me at the time, and we got on the subject of meditation. And I said, we're not too far from the local TM Center. Let me pick up some information for you, and then you can take it and see what you think about it. And I went into this little TM Center here in St. Louis, and there was this young lady working there, and we started a conversation, and I was really taken by her, and I didn't let her know that, of course. But the guy in the car probably thought, "What happened to this guy? He's been in there for 15 or 20 minutes." And so finally, I came out, but in the meantime, I got this girl's phone number, Randy, and asked her out, and actually this year will be 40 years we've been married. So
Congratulations.
we were
But
good
that's interesting. So you guys have been meditating
a
for
really long,
with each, I mean, that's like been a part of your world in your marriage, right? Which
very
is
much.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So so yeah, so she's been a great support, and we've supported each other, and we've been on programs together, and we understand the concept of meditation because she also was a TMer at the time, and so actually Rainey loves Cloud Nine. She's probably my biggest proponent, and so therefore it's wife approved.
She's a dedicated student of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us where people can find you.
Well, I it's changed a little bit because I wanted to originally go and invite folks from the HR departments of businesses to experience it. And then if they liked it, we would then roll it out for their organization. And then COVID hit and we went on to Zoom. And then I just started putting the word out online that I'm doing regular programs. People can tune in at no cost and give it a try and see what they think. And a lot of people have. And so I've listed scheduled times. I've just changed it up because now that people are kind of getting back to work and various things, they don't have as much time. So I'm asking them to let me know by appointment if they want to be a part of the program. And then I conduct it online on Zoom. And what's really interesting, originally I was doing this in a group format, in a conference room sort of format. And then I discovered that it works equally as well online.
Yeah.
So,
our eyes have been open to this whole remote way of doing things.
It's true.
It really has. Before all of this, whenever I'd ask anyone to be on a video conference call, they would be like, "Oh, I don't do that." Then we all had to do it. So, so yeah, it's interesting that it's interesting the before and after of what this pandemic has, what we've lost because of it, what we've gained because of it. I mean, it's a really interesting time to be here.
Yeah, it's almost a way for nature and the world to once again find balance. And so if Cloud9 finds a home for people, that's a wonderful thing. If they find benefit from it, that's what it's all about. It's all about bringing rest and happiness to people, in a way that they may have never thought of before, in a guided technique, which is extremely easy to learn.
And we should let people know that your website it's cloud9exp.com. That's where people can find out the schedule and when to tune in and when to do their get that Cloud9 experience.
So it is Cloud and then the number 9 and then EXP, which is short for experience. And because it's an experience, it truly is all about experience. It's not about intellectual understanding or we don't have to take up a new religion or anything like that. It's just having that experience and showing people that exists within themselves. And then once they know that, I think it creates a different perception for people.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us the unmindfulness technique.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of novel, and because we don't use the mind, I call it the unmindful. It's different than a lot of other things, but I hope the mindfulness people won't be offended by me saying that, but it's really
no, but it's interesting and just for everyone out there, I mean, it's doable. I mean, it's a guided meditation. It's you don't have to like have any pre-experience of anything. You can just tune in and you will be guided along, and you'll go to that restful place, and you'll come out of it feeling better for your day.
That's right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bill, so much. I appreciate your time, and everybody out there, you've been listening to MichMash Podcast. Stay safe out there, and love you all. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Well, we're still on Facebook, so thank you. I appreciate your time today. When is your next meditation?
Let's see. The next one, I have to look at my schedule. I think it's Wednesday evening at 7. And if people can go to the website and just check in, let me know that they want to be a part of that. They can either text or call or just send a note. It's cloud9expinfo@gmail.com. That's the email. And they can just let me know. And then I would put them on a list as the schedules change. For the month of May and April, I have not been charging. It probably will change to some extent sometime in June. And I'm probably going to start working with an organization here in St. Louis. And I don't want to give away too much just yet because it's still too early, but it'll be a facility that will be available that will also be associated with a hospital and university. And so it's going to kind of bring it up to professionals that are in the area, and of course doctors and nurses and all the healthcare workers are under so much pressure these days, and I would love to bring it to those folks and everybody else in the world.
I love it. So everyone knows, and this is true. I was doing a online workshop, like not workshop, but just a, hey, pop in and ask all those questions you have about marketing. Bill popped in, and now look where it's gone. Right? You're on a podcast. You were introduced to someone that you're going to be working with. I mean, this is really cool, right? That we can still do all of this remotely. That you can still meet people and start working with people remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Yay,
That's
us.
true.
Well, thank you, Bill.
Well, thank you
You
so
have
much.
a good rest of your day. And so this when I end this, you can get to it through Facebook. But then when we put the podcast out there, I will tag you and let you know.
Excellent. Thank
All
you.
right. Have a good one. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye.